Hey, it is a great honor for me to be with you this morning on the 75th anniversary of India independence. As you heard, I first visited Excel campus just about 2 years ago. It was late August in 2019. And I have to tell you, I don't think I've received a warmer welcome at any other school, any place on planet Earth, like I received visiting the Excel campus 2 years ago. What a great day I had with your students, and I look forward to returning in person again someday. So I'm really pleased to be with you again this morning, and I'd like to share a brief presentation here. So let me see if I get this up. And I hope you're able to see this.
Yes.
So this is a message I left with the students 2 years ago that I'd like to, just briefly summarize it once again for everybody that's joining us this morning. I'd like to tell the story about how I became an astronaut. I first dreamed of going into space and becoming an astronaut when I was only 6 years old. Back on May 5th, 1961, the United States launched the first astronaut into space. And I was in just kindergarten, and I watched the launch on a small black and white television. And as soon as our astronaut was in space, I remember sitting there as a young student just saying, I want to do that. So ever since I was 6 years old, I knew I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to ride a rocket to space. I wanted to experience zero gravity floating around. So I always knew what I wanted to do, but I wasn't quite sure how to become an astronaut. We only had 7 American astronauts at that time, and I didn't know any of them. But the one thing I recognized early on was it was going to be difficult. I knew there was a lot of competition. Thousands of people apply to be astronauts, and a small handful are selected. So I knew as a young boy, my only chance of ever making it to space would have to involve me working hard and doing my best in school every single day. In all my subjects, in math and science, but reading, art, history, music, gym, language, whatever subject I was studying, I gave it my 100% best effort every single day. After high school, I went on to university and got my bachelor's degree in physics, as you heard. And then I stayed in university and I got my PhD in materials engineering. So after 9.5 years of college, I got out. And it was at this point that I started applying to NASA to become an astronaut. NASA selects new groups of astronauts every 3 or 4 or 5 years. They'll pick a small group of 10 or 15 new astronauts. And 2 years after I finished university, NASA announced they were looking for new astronauts. I was all excited. I got the application, filled it out, sent it in. But unfortunately, NASA said, no thanks. We don't want you. I didn't give up. I tried again 2 years later, another astronaut selection. But unfortunately, the same result. They turned me down once again. So at this point, I started trying to improve my background. I took flying lessons and got my pilot's license. I learned to skydive. I taught a university course because these were all things that NASA seemed to be looking for. So I worked on those activities. 3 years later, they had another astronaut selection. I sent my application in, and I made the group of 100 semifinalists. So I was in the final group of 100 and went through a week of medical testing and interviews, and that all went very well. But about 2 months later, I got a call from NASA, and they said that they were not going to accept me a third time. And I felt like giving up because I had worked hard on this goal of mine and really had given it my 100% best efforts. And after 3 rejections, I just thought maybe NASA doesn't want me. But I decided I'm going to keep trying. I moved down to Houston, Texas. I got a job with NASA as an engineer working on the space shuttle program, just trying to get a little closer to the action. And I worked down there for 3 years. And then they had another astronaut selection, number 4 for me. I sent my application in. I got called up for the medical testing and the interviews. So I was in the group of 100 semifinalists once again. And about 3 months later, I got the phone call from NASA that this time I had made it into the program. So I went from a little boy just dreaming of going into space to getting assigned on 4 space shuttle missions. And this is the crew from the last flight, the last time I went to space. And the number one lesson that I've learned in my life from this process is you need to work hard every single day. And you can never, never give up on your dream. All our great Excel students have amazing dreams for their future. And it's so important that they never give up on that dream. I almost gave up on mine when NASA rejected me 3 times, but it's important to never give up on your dream. It takes hard work. It takes time to get there, but I'm quite confident that you can accomplish, and all the Excel students can accomplish any dream that they have if they put their mind to it, work hard, and never give up on that effort. So I went from this guy, little boy, to flying in space. I launched on my very first mission about 27 years ago aboard Space Shuttle Columbia. And after we launched from the Kennedy Space Center, 8.5 minutes later, I was in space. And I got my first view of the Earth from above. And it takes your breath away when you see what a beautiful planet we live on. I had seen pictures of the Earth taken from space before I ever flew, but when I saw it with my own eyes, it was so spectacular. And this was my favorite activity of being in space. For me, the best part was just seeing all the amazing sights around planet Earth and really seeing what an incredible planet we live on. As you all know, we've got famous astronauts from India, 3 famous ones right here. Rakesh Sharma flew in space in the 1980s. Kalpana Chawla, who I knew very well at the Johnson Space Center, flew in the 1990s. And now we have Sunita Williams, who's been flying in the last 2 decades for NASA, and she's getting ready to fly one of the commercial space flights up to the International Space Station as well. So we've had these 3 astronauts from India. My question is, who is next? Who will be the next astronaut from India? And I see no reason at all that it can't be a student from the Excel group of schools. I've met many of you when I was there 2 years ago. You are really amazing school with amazing students, with big dreams and a lot of energy. And I'm counting on you, on some of you, to become our future engineers and scientists, and maybe astronauts as well. Because about 20 years from now, we're hoping to send humans to the planet Mars. And this is an artist's drawing of that day. You see our landing craft, and just to the right of it, the shadowy figure of the first 2 humans setting foot on Mars. And those astronauts setting foot on Mars, those are our young students today. These are our Excel students. And it's so important that we motivate them for their future. And this is why we say we need you. We're not going to get to Mars without the help of our students, because they are that next generation scientists, engineers, technicians, medical professionals. They're our next generation of artists and business people. So it's so important to work hard in school, do your best every day. And I'm really hopeful that some of you will help us in our journey to Mars in the future. And if anybody can do that anywhere on planet Earth, I know it's the great students at Excel. So with that, I will say thank you very much. Again, a very warm welcome this morning, and I wish everybody the best on this special anniversary, 75th anniversary. So why don't we see if we have any questions here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Don Thomas. And we have 10 students here waiting to ask questions to you. Shall we start with the question time?
Yeah, that would be fine. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I request the students first a chance. I would like to give Alan. Alan, are you here? Please go ahead with your question. Is Alan here? Okay, if Alan is not here, then I would like to ask Jefflin. Jefflin, are you here? You can go go through the questions. Jefflin or Jiso, who is here, you can unmute and you can ask questions. Ashwin, can they unmute and can they ask questions now? Because they are
Um,
finding it difficult to unmute it.
they can unmute themselves, ma'am.
Yeah, yes. Now you can do that. Is Alan there? Jiso, Tejaswini,
Ma'am, I'm
Yes,
there,
ma'am.
Jesso.
please go ahead.
Sir, you're a very pleasant and a person with positive thought. We also have negative thoughts coming to our mind at times. And how do you overcome from negative thoughts but by failure?
You know, I sometimes had negative thoughts and thinking, boy, I don't know if I can accomplish my dream, and NASA was turning me down. So there were days when I had those negative feelings, but I always kept focused on my dream. And I did that by following closely the programs that NASA was doing. When I was, just in high school, Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, and we were, had astronauts walking on the moon then. And it just was so exciting for me that I just kept thinking, I want to be a part of this program. So by following the program and just envisioning myself being a part of it, that helped make it a little more real and a little more positive. So understand that not every day was perfect for me and I wasn't always successful. I failed along the way, but you have to pick up the pieces and come back at it and try again. And as I told you, it took me 4 tries getting into the astronaut program. And you could say, boy, I failed 3 times, but the really important part is I made it in there once. I accomplished my goal. So I think just focusing on the positive aspects and the exciting part of your dream is the most important thing.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And now, Tejaswini, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, to follow the dream, we need to set goals and be organized. So, what steps have you taken to make yourself organized and goal oriented during your school days? And what advice you have for us in setting the goals?
That's a really good question. And sometimes your end goal to, like for me, it was to become an astronaut. It seems so huge. And you wonder, how could I ever accomplish this goal, especially as a young boy, looking at that incredible mountain that I need to climb. But what I did, and a really good technique, is to break it down into little steps along the way. The goal itself is just so huge, but when you can break it down into smaller steps and just take it one step at a time, you're much likely have a greater likelihood of accomplishing your goal. So my initial goal was to finish high school, graduate from high school, get the best grades, do the best that I could on that. And then my next goal was to attend a university and finish up with my bachelor's degree. After that, the goal was to see if I could get my PhD. I wasn't sure if I could accomplish that, but that was the next step. So I just took these little steps one at a time, and I knew I was getting closer. So every now and then, as you're accomplishing your different goals, it's good to stop and take a look at where you've been and how far you've come. And that'll give you the confidence to continue moving forward. And after university, then I started applying. I knew I was competitive. I knew I had the necessary background. And I started taking flying lessons and learning to skydive, as I told you, just trying to make myself a better candidate. So I tried to work on each of those things. Every time when I got rejected, I tried to improve myself and do something that would help support my application for the next go around. So the key here, take your dream and break it up into small steps along the way, because it's almost impossible to take that one leap. To go from 6-year-old boy to being in space is too big of a leap, but you can break it down into smaller steps and just focus on each one of those along the way.
Thanks a lot, Doctor. Now, is Jefflin and Alan there for asking questions related to the topic what sir was discussing? Then we are going to the next part of the question, that is related to patriotism. Now I like to request Rahul, Gayatri, and Chaitanya. One by one, you can ask question now. Rahul, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Greetings, sir. Sir, may I know how patriotism is inculcated during school days in your nation? And when your achievement is named with your nation, how patriotic you were?
Yeah, I think we started when I was quite young with the patriotism in the United States, and we started off every school day. We have we call the Pledge of Allegiance, where we say a phrase. It's a just I don't know, maybe it takes 30 seconds or so, but we call it the Pledge of Allegiance to our country, just dedicating ourselves and our support for our country. And we do that every day at every school day. The very first thing we do, we'd say the Pledge of Allegiance, and raise our hand to our heart in front of the flag as we said that. And so I think by doing that, in the United States, we play our national anthem quite a bit at all the sporting events, to try to remind people what country we're in and to generate patriotism for that. And when I was young, I watched the astronauts fly into space, and they always had, an American patch on their spacesuit, and that made me very patriotic and made me proud to be an American at that time. Just like I'm sure all of you are so proud of your Indian astronauts, as we showed the pictures of Rakesh Sharma, Kalpana Chawla, and Sunita Williams. They should bring great pride to all the people of India. That was the same for me. I had great pride in the American astronauts and was just very proud to be an American.
Yes, next, Gayatri, can you please?
Sir, you might have read a lot about India before visiting here. After visiting our motherland, how have you felt about our nation? And as per your point of view, how our nation, India, is different from other countries?
Yeah, I have traveled around the world, as you heard, 700 times in space. I've also traveled around the world quite a bit down on the surface. And after being in space, to go around the world and meet the people in different countries and learn of their culture and visit their schools like I was able to do at your Excel school, it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. So I've traveled around the world, and some of the warmest welcomes that I've ever received visiting any country and visiting any school was right there at your school at the Excel campus. I have never received any kind of a welcome like that before. And so I know how warm the people are of India. The food is excellent. I always gain a few extra kilos when I come over to India from all the excellent food that I eat there. But I'm most impressed with the warmth and hospitality of the people. And also visiting the Excel campus, I saw the enthusiasm of the students. And I think that is very unique. I don't see that at every country that I visit, every school. The enthusiasm that your students have there at the Excel school for learning, I think is one of the tops in all the world.
Thanks a lot, sir. That was very,
Thank you, sir.
here.
You're very welcome. What great questions we have this morning.
Yeah, Chaitanya, are you ready? Okay, if Chaitanya is not there, now we are coming with space questions. Poovendan, Sheen, and Godse. There are only 3 questions left. Make it fast.
Hello. Yes.
Yes, please.
Greetings from Poovendan, sir. Have a great day. Hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Thank you.
Sir, my question is, in space, in which field do you think India has gone to an advanced level, and in which field do you think India is still lagging in? As a school student, what can I do to my country to bring it up?
You know, what you can do as a student is work hard and do your best every day. And whatever your skills are, if you're a great mathematician or a great engineer or a great scientist, just dedicate those skills to supporting the goals of your country. And maybe if you're interested in space, you know, you want to work in one of the space companies, but there's so many high technology companies in India and doing such incredible work that wherever you get involved, wherever your skills make the best fit, the best match, you know, you will greatly support your country and make it even greater and stronger, you know, in the future.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to, Sheen, are you there? Okay, Godsi?
Good morning, sir. I'm Roger Grade 10. So my question is that why has there been no manned missions to the moon since December 1972, and what can be the reason for this?
Yeah, the missions to the moon, that's a good question. They were very expensive. And believe it or not, Americans got bored with going to the moon. After we landed there 2 times, most Americans were getting a little bored with that. So the United States decided to focus back on planet Earth. So when we went to the moon, we saw what a beautiful planet Earth was. And it was that blue ball just floating in the blackness of space. And that motivated, you know, the United States to kind of focus on planet Earth. Our first Earth Day was in 1970, I think it was. It was, you know, just a year or so after we had first visited the moon. And it was an outgrowth of a result of our lunar trip. So the space shuttle program was designed to focus on the Earth and to do research, all for the benefit of Earth. And we did that for 30 years, but we're getting ready to go back to the moon once again. NASA is building a brand new rocket called the Space Launch System. We call it the SLS. And these will be the biggest, most powerful rockets ever designed and launched. We've been working on these rockets for more than 10 years. You haven't heard much about it, but you will very soon. In November of this year, it's currently scheduled for November 22nd, we're going to test launch the very first rocket in this series. And what we're going to do, we're going to send it unmanned, so no astronauts on board. They're going to launch it to the moon. It'll orbit the moon for 2 weeks and come back to Earth. And if everything works well in that first test mission, we're going to put astronauts on the very next flight and send them in orbit around the moon. So later this year, first test launch of this new rocket. About 2 years from now, we hope to have astronauts orbiting the moon. And about 4 to 5 years from now, we hope to land 2 astronauts at the south pole of the moon. And NASA has committed those 2 astronauts. One of them will be the first woman on the moon, and the other one will be the next man on the moon. So we've had 12 astronauts on the moon. They were all men about 50 years ago. And I think it's pretty exciting to know we're just 5-6 years away from having the very first woman on the moon. And NASA today currently has 18 astronauts training for these moon missions, 9 men and 9 women. So later this year, when we launch this new rocket, the Space Launch System, you're going to start hearing a lot about this program. And I think it's very exciting. The next decade or so will be quite exciting for space exploration, because these are the rockets we'll use to go to the moon, and the same rockets we'll be using them to send our astronauts to Mars in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
One last question from a student. He was unable to join, so I just express those questions. And what he was asking is, all Einstein's predictions were proved later. Like one of his predictions about gravitational waves were proved by LIGO. And what he was asking is, what Einstein mentioned in theory of relativity about the time and space, time mission, whether it will come into practice. There's no evidence till 2021 that time has come, in the past and all. So whether it is true according to your perspective, what do you think about time?
Yeah, Einstein was talking a little bit about time travel, and we just don't know how to do that yet. He had the theoretical concept, but it takes a while for engineering and the real world to catch up with that. So we know that the faster you go near the speed of light, time slows down a little bit. So we know about that, but time travel itself, whether we're able to project ourselves into the future or go into the past, we don't know how to do that yet. And that's why we need great minds, like of all of our students, all of our Excel students. They are great thinkers. And maybe some of you will come up with the ideas of how to make this a practical reality. And maybe someday we can travel through space much quicker than we can today. And maybe we'll have that ability to travel through time, as Einstein has once mentioned and predicted in the past. So we'll just have to wait, but we leave it up to your generation. I think it'll be up to your generation to try to move that forward to see if we can do that.
Thank you so much. Now one last question from Excel Media, Mr. Tom. Tom sir, please. Tom sir, are you available?
Hello, sir. Sir.
Hello, I can hear you.
Yeah, sir. My question for you is, I had the great hope that after 10 years, the people are from Earth is going to space, right? So, if many people go to the space, means obviously the medical facilities we needed. So, what kind of medical opportunities the space will have, sir, after 10 years? In short, actually, is there any medical opportunities for the medical students in the space?
Is there opportunities for medical students to go to space? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. That's a really good point. And, about 10% of the NASA astronauts are actually medical doctors, because NASA has recognized the importance of having medical doctors on your crew. This is going to be so incredibly important when we build a lunar base, and especially when we send astronauts to Mars. A trip to Mars and back to Earth will take roughly, we think, about 3 years. And if you have a medical emergency, along the way, there's no turning around and immediately coming back to Earth. You may be days, months, years from getting back to a hospital or medical facilities here on Earth. So we are going to have to be prepared, and by we, I mean the crew on that mission is going to have to be prepared to take care of every issue, all medical issues that come up. We're learning to do that to a limited extent today on the International Space Station. We have more medical facilities up there and equipment, and the astronauts receive more medical training than they did before in the Space Shuttle program. I was training for a space station mission, and I spent a week training in an emergency room. I did other different techniques that they were showing us. They were trying to give us some basic emergency training in case you don't have a doctor on your crew. They want to train the astronauts and give us as much training as we can to help along the way. But ideally, I think you need to fly medical doctors on the astronaut crew.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thomas. Yeah. Actually, when you came 2019, you told us that you'll be back very soon, and you fulfilled your promise. And we are very happy as a whole team that we are. When we heard that you remember about Excel and the hospitality what we gave here, we were so happy. So, on behalf of Excel family, the entire crew, I thank you wholeheartedly and wishing you great health and long life, happiness to you and your family. We know that even now it's 11 o'clock there, and how energetic, how enthusiastic you were to giving us the presentation as well as answering to the questions asked by the students. we are very grateful for that.